never change, same text on the phone, yeah, it's all the same. Oh, it's all the Alrighty, and what is up, everybody? It is your boy Farai. Thank you once again for tuning into another video. Today we're going to be looking at how to achieve a wonderful pop punk radio ready sounding vocal effect. So if you're in that, definitely stick around. We're going to be taking a look at the new song by Iann Dior, Let You. I think this is a perfect example that represents kind of the 2021 version of what Fall Out Boy, Green Day, Blink-182 used to be when they were back on the radio. Most of the same types of mixes are still working on these records, so I've already been inspired by Chris Lord LG, his brother TLA, and a whole bunch of other mixes, Manny, lots of guys that have been around, and really try to kind of focus on gear and plugins that they would use. So we got a whole bunch of SSL waves, etc. So if in that, definitely stick around. Definitely check the link in the description for my LinkTree. You can check out all sorts of different products and services. You can get this FLP as well as, for example, Zoom consultations. You can speak to me, vocal recording course, vocal mixing course. You get the idea. Yeah, let's get straight into it. So I'll play the track and then we'll break down some of these wonderful vocal chains. If we do get 150 likes in this video, I will do the background vocals as well. It'll probably be a bit much to do in this video. I try to keep it under 20 minutes, but yeah, let's get into it. Go, you go, the love that we had is making me sad, so I let you. Okay, you say that you changed, but you never change. Same text on the phone, yeah, it's all the same. Oh, it's all again, you do, I sound insane. You end up just ignoring you because of the things you do. Get up on the plane, I gotta go. I can't never stop, and that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down, we never know. We never know, yeah. Drop top, moonlight, only come out when the sun's down. Can't break up, yeah, make up, and we do it again. This time I know, there's no looking back. Alrighty, there you go. So definitely something that you would find on the radio. We definitely are focusing on the mid-range. Okay, the mid-range is so important when we're going to be working on these types of songs. So I'm going to be showing you some techniques that I've utilized: saturation, EQ, etc. So let's get straight into it, man. So for those who don't know my template format, I would highly advise you do learn my template format because it is mimicking a analog mixing console. If you can learn the routing like how I do, you will have learned routing like all of the best, man, the live sound engineers, the studio engineers, etc. So the way we like to do it is we have a mic input channel that then can run into any of the green channels, which we could then record through in real time. Obviously, depending on your CPU, you could record with some of these vocal chains on. But generally, we'll have kind of one or two plugins on during the recording phase. I like to keep on an SSL EQ and then a flanger. For those who are always tuned in, you'd know which particular SSL, not really too important. But that's what I record with. And then in the mixing stage, I'll add everything else. But, the way it works is we can record into a vocal chain. So our main vocal, for example. We could then listen to a little bit of compression and we could apply our auto-tune. And these are the kind of settings I use. So for auto-tune, we just have kind of basic auto-tune going on. Auto-tune is very much personal preference. So I like to use this or the brand new Slate Metatune. Those are really good. Or that's really good. This is also really good. And yeah, simple and sweet. You can obviously apply your own settings. So after that, in this instance, man, kind of copying what the pros, the pop punk pros, the mixing gods are doing. You're going to be wanting to add an 1176, okay? Any type of 1176, don't get too caught up in the name or the brand. Waves CLA 76, great stuff, right? It has that saturation. UAD 76 definitely also has that saturation. Each one has its own flavor, so definitely, pick and choose what you like. I've kind of grown to like the Revision E1176 from UAD because it kind of has a nice fat tone, and we're keeping it really simple, man. I mean, we're not driving the input too much. We're not overdoing the output trim. We're kind of just using it to do a little bit of limiting, right? Limiting compression, right? We are at a low ratio of 4, so it is compressing. But if you watch what it does, let's just kind of go to a different part in the track. You because of the things you do. Get up on the plane, I gotta go. I can't never stop, and that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down, we never know. We never know, yeah. Drop top. You see, all it really does is it kind of kisses the loudest parts of every vocal. And all that's doing is it's allowing us to when we hit our main vocal chain, to really just focus on kind of, character enhancement, kind of tonal enhancement, instead of trying to kind of wonder about, correcting the volume too much, right? So that's what I like to do. It definitely has a sound, it definitely has a character. We're adding it to both of our main vocal channels. The reason I have two main vocal channels is because there are going to be certain parts in your track where the auto-tune overlap. So it's nice to have two different main vocal channels. Again, if you had two artists, right? If you had artist A and artist B, they could both have their own separate channel, which could then run into the main vocal channel, which we'll go through just now. But you could do your correction on one channel, and then on the other, have your other artist, right, singing. So cool stuff, very much flexible. So yeah, after that, once we run our main vocals into our vocal chain, the first thing I like to focus on, so we'll kind of just go through all the colors just so we can get an overview of what's going on. Everything in Lime, these two plugins in Lime are going to be saturation, okay, console style saturation. The next is going to be in light blue, which is our EQ, equalization, toning, okay. After that, we've got our compression stages, right, de-essing and compression, flavor. And then in light blue or light purple, we've got our effects, right, which is just the H3000 flanger and then a bit of a stereo widener. And that's really it. So if we kind of dive into it, we start off by using the good old Farai's vocal enhancer. So for those who have it, you know what I'm saying? You know how wonderful this is for FL Studio. This is kind of emulating like a Fairchild, emulating a bit of a Neve, just kind of an all-round kind of mix of my favorite plugins and hardware that I have in the studio. So really we have a kind of tube version of a Neve, right? So we can do a bit of tube drive over here. We can kind of gain stage the input. But in this instance, what I'm really doing is I'm just using the toning EQ. It's kind of like SSL EQ. And all it's really doing is removing some of the mud out of the mix, adding a bit of air, and then reducing that treble to give us a bit of a Pultec sound. And that really sounds good. After that, we then have the SSL X Saturator. Again, this is kind of adding, when I'm doing in-the-box mixing, I kind of miss running stuff through the console. These line amps on the console definitely have a flavor to them. They add a bit of stereo width, bit of girth to whatever sound source we're pushing through. And yeah, I really like it. So, this is all I'm doing with the third order harmonic stuff. Really nothing crazy. Just kind of getting a little bit of that flavor. Very light stuff, 10% on the mix. So it's just adding a little bit of flavor. If I was to turn this off, you can kind of hear how, we lose definition when we don't have any saturation at our initial vocal chain stage. So let's take a listen. You because of the things you do. Get up on the plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. So you can hear a little bit of that tubbiness, no definition once we add that in. You because of the things you do. Get up on the plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. Suddenly it just livens up, right? We get that extra kind of content coming out of the mix, you know what I mean? So there you go, that's saturation. After that, we got our EQ, equalization stage. And again, man, when it comes to mixing stuff like this, you don't want to be too intrusive in manipulating your sound sources, okay? So make sure your vocal recordings are good, make sure your drums are good, make sure the guitars are good, and all you're really then going to do is focus on kind of reducing things that you don't want in the mix. And in this instance, I really just wanted to notch filter stuff out that was clashing with the instrumental, right? So the guitar is quite present in the mid-range, and so because mid-range is so important, I don't want to kind of do large cuts, right, and kind of fully manipulate the vocal. I just want to kind of find frequencies that I don't like and then just kind of pull them out. So we did that around 200 up to like 500 right there, just kind of getting rid of some of that gunk in there, and then getting rid of certain frequencies in the treble and in the mid-range, and then doing a little bit of an emphasis boost at 21K, and then actually lifting up the vocal on certain parts. So if you see on parts where there is treble, we're actually lifting it up, which is quite interesting, right? But I'll tell you why now. Just watch this. You because of the things you do. Get up on the plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. And that's really just adding in a bit of emphasis, adding in a bit of kind of like a high-end distortion, just to kind of emphasize the vocal. So a little cool trick. After that, then we kind of get more old school, right? We're pulling up our SSL G Series EQ. Definitely fun. Again, please use whatever you have. In this instance, I'm actually using two SSLs, right? One on the bus, which is the waves, and then one on the main vocal, which is the plugin alliance. And all have different uses, right? Each one is kind of a slight different flavor in the SSL kind of toolbox, right? I got some E-Series 4000 EQs here, black and brown, and I know what they sound like. They're very clean, or these ones in particular. This is the X-Logic, so these are a bit newer. Got the old ones as well, and they all have a different flavor. Each one can be used in a different way. And in this instance, man, we're using this just to kind of get a bit of that kind of tone, kind of weight, kind of balance. That's what we're using this for. So if we kind of work from left to right, we got the filter section. Okay, here all we're doing is a high pass filter at 87 hertz. That's getting rid of some of the lowest end of the track, not needed in a vocal at times. And then we're actually using this low pass filter at around 10.6K, and what that's doing is it's just kind of thinning out that top end. We don't really need it in this mix. Remember, this instrumental, and especially in pop music, man, the treble is already going to be there in the beat, right? You want that beat to be live, right? Because people are going to be listening to these in cars, so the cymbals have to be hitting, the snare has to be hitting, so the vocal must exist in that mid-range. So we're getting rid of some of that top end, and it's really not much of a kind of difference if I turn these off.
You because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down, we'll never know.
It's really just kind of honing that vocal in and just putting it in a pocket. So yeah, really cool. After that, what we do is I did a little bit of an insane thing this time around. We got a compressor going at 93:1 ratio, which is insane. It's limiting essentially, but all I'm actually using it for is flavor. Okay, we're not actually compressing much. The LED is not even lighting up. So for those who know the SSL, the first compression LED will only light up at -3 dB. So we're not even touching that. So it might be doing 1 to 2 dB, who knows? But we are essentially using it for a slight boost in volume. For those who know about the SSL EQ, it has automatic makeup gain, meaning for every time you compress or every amount you compress, it's going to lift up the same amount in volume, right? It's going to automatically make up for what we are losing in compression. Okay, I'm just doing very slight compression, and yeah, easy stuff, right? Very much just using it as kind of a toning device. I'm using it in a way that I'm kind of summing as well. I'll do my in-the-box mixing, bring stuff out onto the console, and do EQ and compression in a similar way. Again, just a little bit of a top-end boost, SSL boost, the 8K boost, beautiful. Not touching this. Oh, actually we are, my bad. 3K, 1.1 dB boost. It works on my vocal. Definitely find what works on your vocal. Somewhere between, I would say, 5K and 1.5K should be a good range to kind of find that SSL poke sound. But yeah, sounds good. You could even try 600. It's going to give you a bit more of a kind of full sounding vocal. So yeah, 200 cut, and then a little bit of a 30 hertz boost just to get some of that kind of weight out of the vocal, emphasize that compression we're doing. And yeah, easy stuff, man. After that is our compression section, or our compression stage in the mix. And all I'm doing here is a bit of R compressor. Now, this compressor, man, it's old, but it just has a sound, right? I can't really not use it in a mix. Every vocal I'm going to be mixing, I'm going to be putting up the R compressor. I just like the way it sounds. It has this old school kind of fattiness to it, and I like it. And we're using kind of a slower release, kind of fast attack, kind of using it as like a 1176 type thing, but really just to glue the vocal. So if you want to just see how much this yellow attenuation meter is showing, you can check that out.
You because of the things you do.
Not much, just really just kind of, hey, don't get too loud, right? Cool. After that, what we're doing is actually pulled up this kind of last in the mix. Once everything was done, I wanted a bit more kind of taming, right? I'm not going to do all the compression in one compressor because I will often find that it does a bit too much pumpiness. I find digital compressors don't do well at like higher ratios or kind of in high amounts of compression. So I like to do compression in stages, and I decided to pull up this VMR from Slate and then use the distressor clone. And essentially, man, I'm kind of doing a little bit of LA2A style compression. Just again, pay attention to the LED.
You because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go.
And as you can see, we're doing quite a lot of compression, 7 dB, but we're using parallel compression. So we're using this at 40% wet, 60% dry, and just to kind of add a bit more flavor, right? Because remember, a lot of these plugins are digital, so they're not going to have that full amount of kind of analog distortion that I'm used to. I decided to put up this London saturator, and this is like a kind of like a red preamp style thing, and it just adds a nice fat amount of kind of saturation onto the vocal, gives it a bit of kind of cut to kind of tame and go through the mix, right? And again, we paralleling that. So if I was to turn this off,
you because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down with
it's doing a little bit of taming and a little bit of saturation. So really cool. You can definitely mix and match. Comment below if I should do a Slate digital preset pack. I could go crazy on these. There are lots of cool, modules we could manipulate. But yeah, cool stuff. So yeah, man, after that, Slate de-esser. Okay, I've got my own preset. Definitely play around with your own de-essers, see what you like, see what works on different vocals. But again, I just pulled this up because it's easy to set up since I got the preset. But you know, if you want to see how much de-essing I'm doing, not much. Just pay attention to how much the blue line goes down.
You because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down, we'll never know. We'll never know, never know, yeah. Drop top, moonlight, only come out when the sun's down.
So as you can see, whatever it finds is kind of too spiffy or tippy in the mix, it's just gonna kind of reduce that, but not by much, right? We don't want to make it kind of apparent, right? We don't want to ever hear that it's really de-essing. So there you go, cool stuff, doing a little bit of smoothing. And then we got our kind of sweetening section, okay? Once we've done the bulk of our kind of, you know, the meat and potatoes, kind of mixing, you know, EQ, compression, saturation, we then want to pull up a bit of kind of, you know, sweetening sauce. And that's really just our Eventide, H3000, and we're just doing a little bit of flanger, about 4% in the mix level, so really not much. Then a little bit of air flanger, and then we're just widening the vocal. So we're just really emphasizing these two elements right here. Whoops, these two, and not by much, man. I mean, if I pull this all the way to the top, you can't really hear any sort of difference. It's just adding a bit of a tape style modulation effect on top of the vocals. So there you go. If I turn off the whole vocal chain,
You because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go. You because of the things you do. Yeah, hop on a plane, I gotta go. I can never stop it, that's for sure. Yeah, when you hold me down, we'll never know. We'll never know, never know, yeah.
as you can see right there, all we're really doing is just kind of cleaning up the vocal. We're not really taking away from the initial tone of the vocal, but we just wanted to blend into the mix. So yeah, that's pretty much it. On the all vocal channel, I'm sure some of you want to see what's happening on this SSL EQ from Waves. This is the new one. And yeah, really not much, man. All I'm doing is adding in a little bit of this kind of mic preamp distortion thing going on. It's adding a bit of volume. And then I'm just doing a 16,000 hertz boost of about 1 dB. And that's just kind of adding a bit of fidelity onto the vocal. I do find that the Waves EQs in general sound a bit more clinical than other brands out there. So that's why this can go on a bus, whereby this is going to kind of affect the overall tone. If I do want more analog tone, I'm going to be adding something like this. This definitely works for beats, you know, drum buses, etc., and sometimes vocals. But yeah, I like to use this on individual elements. So yeah, SSL EQ not much, doing a little bit of a high pass filter as well, and really that's it, just turning down the output gain a little bit. From then on out, we hit the kind of vocal bus compressor, and all this is doing is about 1 dB of compression.
You because of the things you do.
It's kind of just holding that vocal back really nice. And then a little bit of L1, and that's really just limiting the overall level, so it kind of sits. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. You know, background vocals, as I said, we will do another video on that. It's really cool, lots of flavor and kind of color going on in that section. But yeah, I'll leave that for a different video. Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. We do have some outboard effects as well, H3000. And that I think is the 321, just a classic pitch shift, and then a DP2, which is a reverb. Just a nice kind of 90s sounding plugin. No, I thought my computer crashed. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. You know, hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, check out the link in the description for this FLP for FL Studio. There will be a free VST version as well included. So for those who might not have all of the crazy plugins that I'm using in this mix, there'll be a free VST version available using stock plugins, as well as some cool free plugins from different companies that I like. And yeah, man, as always, check out the vocal recording course, vocal mixing course for FL Studio. You can also just watch them if you're wanting to learn how to record and manage your own mixes, manage your own recording sessions. Definitely a huge boost in knowledge, I guess. But yeah, to be had. But yeah, man, I'll check out next time. Peace out.